Okay, I just want to make sure that my screen is refreshed and you guys all see what I am seeing. Okay, looking like it is there. Hello, everybody, back for day 8. It always makes me smile so much to see familiar faces continuing to come back. That just shows your dedication to this, and I am not only very proud, but very honored that you guys are here every day. I will say it is finally a sunny day over here. I saw that Judy said it is another yucky weather day in Pennsylvania, and I am sorry for always that you're having these yucky days, because I will say the sunshine was a breath of fresh air for me over here today. I'll hope for a sunny day for you tomorrow, or at least maybe later today even. Lauren received her Arches cold press 140-pound paper last night. Never thought I'd get so excited about a pad of paper. Oh, isn't that the truth? It is like a game changer. I'm really, really excited for you, Lauren. I think you're going to see huge progress, faster progress than you would have without that paper. I know you're working through the dog portrait course, and I know that you're going to find it to be a significant change. But also let me know if you do feel like the paper is as impactful as I feel like it is. Judy also agrees it is the best paper. The only time I don't use my really nice Arches paper is when I'm doing illustrations for scanning purposes that will become a design in the future. For example, I have a bunch of examples over here. So I design wedding invitations. So when I go to create their wedding pieces like this, I'll paint each of these individual elements on a separate piece of paper that in the end, they aren't necessarily going to get this individual flower as an original. So I'll instead paint them on student grade paper sometimes. Sometimes I do them on the nice paper depending on how detailed I want them to get and how big the final product will be printed. But because it's a printed piece of art and scanned in, I don't need that top quality paper. Except, with the exception being, I give keepsake paintings. So for example, here is one of their venues and one of their boat venues. So I paint those on the nice paper because they're going to get the originals. Okay. Let's see, I can't wait to try it. I already had my sketch ready for today using the student grade paper. Yeah, that'll be perfect. Now you can do it again and be able to compare and contrast what the impact of the paper and how it changes your painting outcome. If you do that, I would love to see just even like a picture side by side. Good morning, Jacqueline. But I really look forward to each morning knowing this is in this class. I'm going to be sad when it's over. Oh, that really means a lot to read that. You guys have no idea how it is such a gift to be able to connect with you all through my love for watercolor and your love for watercolor. And it's crazy that we can do this, obviously, through the internet. Working for yourself at home by yourself it can be very lonely. So these are the things that I love to do and connect with you guys. So thank you for being here. Where can I get more subjects to paint like this in class so I can print and practice more? Okay, great question. So I have a few tutorials over on my YouTube channel, but if you're ever looking for more ideas and references, there is a wonderful website out there. I will go ahead and find it and see if I can drop it in our chat. 1 second. That has royalty-free stock images, and that's what you'll want to reference for the most part. I like to use that only because it's safe and free to use. So dropping in this pixabay.com, that is where I find a lot of great references. So with that then, what you can do is you can go ahead and search for a cardinal, for example, like we're doing today. And I would recommend either, depending on how you can trace whatever tools that you have to trace, the bird or whatever it may be, trace that, and you should be set to go with more ideas to paint along like we've been doing in this challenge. Okay, awesome, awesome. Okay, I am so excited to paint a cardinal. I can't say, okay, Judy uses Unsplash a lot. So another great resource for free, royalty-free images. I love that too. So today we are diving into painting a cardinal, and I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. Of course, the cardinal is red, so I'll go ahead and get that paint activated here. The other thing that we'll be using, or the other color that we'll be using a lot, is making that red, depending on what color your red is. Mine leans more onto the pink side. I'm going to add more of the orange color to make it a crimson red, like that, nice and bright, reddish orange. Cardinals are just so beautiful, especially in the wintertime. They really pop. We have quite a few cardinals. If I were to fill up the bird feeder, we'd have even more, but we get a lot of bluebirds, blue jays, and cardinals in our backyard. And even the red-headed woodpeckers, we have a bunch of those too, and those birds are beautiful. They're maybe a little bit loud and annoying, but beautiful nonetheless. So I am going to start with, of course, lighter layers and then work our way into adding details. I will be using various hues of the black and Payne's gray because there is some dark areas within the bird and some kind of bluish gray in the wing. Okay, let's go ahead and get started having a nice base layer. Let's start, if we can, start with the head and just start to lay our foundation in right above here. I'm just going to lay in that first layer. And now I want to kind of show some jagged edge, like the feathers are fanning out at the top. And to do that, I'm just going to paint a few little brushstroke lines coming out of this head here. And now working my way down, I'm going to leave this part for later because it is the dark black color. And now as I'm working my way down, I see a transition of a little more orange needing to be added here. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll get rid of that color on my brush and I'll pick up more orange, grab a tiny bit of that red color, and then I'm going to start to paint with that now. And bringing it down to the breast of the bird here. Just working slow because we are going to see a transition into kind of a grayish red right around where the wing starts. So to help me transition that, I'll just get rid of the paint on my brush and continue to push some of this red paint down. And right underneath where the wing is, I'm going to leave that shape. So I'll grab a little more of that red and we'll just continue to add it into the stomach area here and right underneath his little, this is going to be a male cardinal because he has brighter colors naturally than the female, which always seems so backwards to me. I don't really know why, but we're going to bring that red down and around his little leg. And then pushing it down towards the tail. And I'll just kind of finish up right here, because I think I will go and add a little more of that orange and drop some of that in down around in here. We have a red-tailed hawk nest. Ooh, wow. Judy, you must live in the country, I'm assuming, to have a red-tailed hawk nest. That's impressive. My husband loves birds, so that would just totally make his day. That would make for some beautiful photos too. Now I'm grabbing that orange color and dropping it right underneath our wing, since that will create a shadow. And I will try to leave some of this area lighter, right below his belly. Okay. So here's just kind of a nice little base. Yeah, we also have the white bald eagles too, and boy, are they pretty. One time when we were fishing, because we love to go fly fishing, we saw a bald eagle in the tree. Like, all you had to do was just look up, and it must have just jumped into the water or had dove into the water. I shouldn't say jump, had probably dove to grab a fish, because now it was sitting up in the tree with its wings like spanned straight out. It was the craziest looking thing I've ever seen. And he had no care in the world that we were right below staring at him. They live in north of Philadelphia. Oh, wow. Yeah, I suppose they kind of have to find their homes wherever, but that's pretty surprising that there's a hawk's nest in the city. That's cool. We have a large lake here, and watch yeah, I know, it's so cool to see the birds actually in action like that. I think one time too, we saw, it was the biggest bird I've ever seen. Um, it must have been a golden eagle, because it was that tan color and it was bigger than a regular bald eagle. So that was really, really cool. I'm just going to create a little bit of a darker red with my Payne's gray. And I just want to add that in. Looks like my paper hasn't dried, or the paint hasn't dried, so I'm just running it right along underneath the bird wing. And let's see, I think that looks pretty good. I might add like a little titch to the area right above the leg and right underneath. Let's see. Another layer that we could do is working on the tail that comes out here. So that's kind of like I would say just kind of a dark, deep red right underneath. I'm leaving these feathers because they are more in the grayish colors right here. So just working with the reds right now, right along here. Looks like I need to make it even darker. But let's just lay in our first layer of red. And then pick up a little bit of that. I'm even going to mix some brown into my red with some Payne's gray. That looks more like the color. That's the shadow right underneath. There we go. That looks much better. Makes it look way more natural too that way. I'll pull that up here. So I kind of like a brownish red and with that dark Payne's gray just helped that to be a shadow on those tail feathers. All right, so for our wing here, I am going to grab Payne's gray, and I don't need a lot of it because it's going to be a pretty light color. I should have really cleaned my palette out here. So I have Payne's gray on my brush, and I'll dab it on my paper towel because I still don't need that much. But this is where we'll start to add in some of those really pretty bluish gray colors. And if you have a little red still on your paintbrush, that is a-okay too. So I'll just lay that wash in there. I'll do a few strokes from the bottom part of the, so I'm leaving a little bit of white between my brush strokes there. This is going to help define the feathers. And now for the reddish color that appears on that top part of the wing here. It's a combination of red mixed with kind of that grayish color. So when I mix Payne's gray with my red, it tends to lean more purple than I want it to be. So this is where I'm going to add just the tiniest titch of black. And that's going to help neutralize that red and make it less purple. I'll dab my paper towel because I do not want a lot. And we'll just start to add in that layer of that nice, pretty, dark grayish red, which definitely has probably a technical name for it besides grayish red. And now we want to make sure that we have less paint as we work our way towards the top of the body, because that is where the light is hitting the bird. So that's all I'm going to do right there for that wing. As there's kind of these top little wings, which we haven't defined, but they're there. And then I'll get rid of that paint on my brush. This under part now has a little bit of a brighter reddish tone to it. So I'll mix my red and my orange. And we will do some longer strokes that blend right into that grayish color that we did, to give the illusion of the feathers. So I'll just kind of let them taper. And I kind of like the more free, messier. But that's all I did for it right now. Okay, I'd say that's a great first base layer on the reddish part of our bird. Next, what we want to do is brighten up and darken up some of the areas, and that's where we'll start to see this cardinal come to life. So let's brighten it up with our orange. You could add it right into your red, but you want more orange this time. Maybe even a little touch of yellow should layer on nice and bright. So here I have kind of a nice orange hue. I'll dab my paper towel, but I want this area right here of the bird to be much brighter. So I'll just do some little fun almost like fan scrubbing motions working its way out from this chin and eye area. So I want to start to see the texture of feathers. So this is what I have right now. And I'll even kind of leave a little bit of a gap. They have this little ring that looks like where their neck is. And I'll just pick up right there and do a little more. There's also that pretty brighter color right on. It's very, very rich of a crimson color. So the red, the orange, and I have quite a bit of paint, I'd say, on my brush. But again, I'm going to use the very tip of my brush. I want to have a little more control. And this is where you can kind of just paint and draw little tiny feathers working our way out towards, I'm sure this part has a name too, of its head. And we'll just continue to fan them as we work our way out. And then down towards the eye, just kind of wrap it around the eye a little bit. Okay, I love the color on my brush right now. I think I might just continue to add a little more down and around where the black area will be. All right, let's grab, not quite as bright this time, so more of your red. I need to add that little bit of orange to mine. And I might even add a tiny bit of that Payne's Gray color. So I just carried my mixture over here into the Payne's Gray mixture that I had over here. And now that'll be the darker feather colors that we use to show texture down below here. So I don't have too much water on my brush, I'd say. I have more paint. And again, I'm just going to do tiny brush strokes, especially right underneath where the wing is, to show a shadow-like texture. I even feel like I have too much, so I'll get rid of that on my brush. But just going to do tiny little strokes there. Some thick, some thin, so kind of harder pressure, less pressure, working more in the point versus working more at an angle of your brush. And I don't want to do this type of texture over the entire bird. It's just going to look way too overwhelming and not quite as realistic. So I'll just hit a few areas here to show the shadow and depth. And we can even add some right up into where we just were with this bird. I'm really loving that. So this helps to transition this area into that gray area that we painted. So here is the texture I have going right now. Now again, you can add a few little pieces down below here, but I'm not going to do it across the entire bird. Lynn asks if there's a reference. There is a reference. I can go ahead and drop that picture in the comments here. So then that way Not sure if I have it. Let's see. I have a couple different computers I'm working from. Not sure if I have the link, the direct link to the reference on this computer, but I can be sure I find that and put that in here. Let's see. I don't think I do. But if you want to just pull up a cardinal, you can kind of see, and I'll add this cardinal right into the group, or not the group, the comments below. Okay, perfect. So to help blend some of these lines, just take a little bit of water and dab it on your paper towel so you have a clean brush, but that's going to help us fan some of these areas down. And into the bird here. All right, looking good there. What we will do to help define this area with its feathers is using a really light reddish, I would just kind of use that same color we were using as we created these feathers here on the breast of the bird. I'm just going to use a really light amount of it on my brush. And that's what we'll use to help create the feathers. So they're kind of like these big triangle-like shapes, so we'll help define those. Right above, or right on top of the purplish gray color that we created. And there's also another little layer of feathers, so I'll just take my brush and do little flicks. Like so, just so I can still see some of that gray color underneath. Okay. Before I do this dark piece, let's do the beak, which is definitely more in the orange family. So orange, and I'm even going to add a little bit of this brighter yellow that I have to my orange. And let's begin by painting that shape in. I'm going to get rid of that paint on my brush. I want to leave a nice little highlight towards the top of the bird here, or the beak. Whoops. So just a first layer on the beak. And then to help show some dimension, I'll grab the red and just drop it in right along where it meets, where that dark color will be. And you can even hit a little spot down below. Okay, I might switch over to one size smaller down of a brush, size 6, just so I can have a little more control into some of these smaller areas here and the feet. And I also want to go back through and just add a little more dimension right in here. And that should really make the bird look like it's popping more than it is. So this is where I'm going to work with a little bit of the black. Running out of space over here, so I have a little black on my brush, and I'll dab my paper towel because I really don't want much. And let me start by defining some of these areas of the tail feathers. So there is a nice little shadow right around in here. Because this feather is laying right on top of the tail feathers. And I will even help progress that and push it out. And you can even just run your brush, your dry brush, right along. That also really, really helps to blend it. Let me get a little darker right under here. Okay, I think that made a huge stride already just to show dimension within the tail of the bird. Let's add some more of that black. Again, I don't need much, so I'll just add a little water and dab my paper towel. And I want to use the very tip of my brush just to make this area a little darker. And now I'm going to carry it up into the wing like that. And we'll define the lower part of that same feather like that. And then just painting a few lines. These are long, skinny, layered feathers. So I'm just going to hit a few little areas like that. Now, depending on how detailed you wanted to get within your cardinal, you could go back through and still define each of these little feathers. But I don't think you need to do that for all of them. I think that would take away and be too distracting. So just hitting a few like that helps to give the idea of the feather. Let's do that little patch up by the eye. And again, that's going to be with the black color. Hopefully the nose should be, or I should say the beak, is dry. Mine is. I will just start slow because I want to be careful. This is such a hard color to get rid of once you lay it in. But I'm just going to start to lay that in. And I'm actually going to work around the eye for now. Leave that. Looks like I need a little more paint. And work down underneath that beak. And you can leave that edge jagged too, just to make it look more realistic. And then paint one little line that kind of circumferences and goes around the eye. So in my bird, my darkest values are definitely right in this area as well as down here. And what I'm seeing is this area is much darker than this piece right here. So that's a big part of painting, is to be able to see your darkest darks and be able to compare them as you're working. So now that I have my dark here, I need to match that right here. So I'll just add another little layer right there. Okay, I'm gonna wait on the eye for now just so I can get a little more control in there and let this dry. And what I love is that the black wasn't as deep as it could have been, so it looks kind of like a lighter black, lighter gray black. For our little legs here, they're going to be kind of a combination of a bluish gray, kind of like what we had here in this wing. So let's pick up our Payne's gray. And I'm just going to start with a little Payne's gray on my brush and very lightly create that as my base layer here. And another one down here. And just working around the little toenails. And the trick will be to kind of warm that up, which will be a brown and red mixture. So I just added a little bit of that brown to my red in my palette here. So before that dries, let's just drop that in. But I still want to make sure I see that grayish color. And it looks like he has a little fingernail that juts out right there. I'm not sure if I love that yet, so we'll see if I keep that little fingernail, but it is realistic, so that's just where it is. Just looks a little funny. Okay. For the eye, working really in that same color, you might want to switch to a smaller pointed round brush. So whatever you feel like you can get the smallest detail with, we'll be using the black again. There is a tiny little shine in there. If you aren't able to capture it with the white of the paper, you can add it back in with your bleed proof white or whatever you may have, your gouache. So I'm just going to start by adding in some dark color right into the eye and leaving, oh, if I can grab my paper here. So I left a little white shine at the top and a little white ring below. And that really helps to make it so it doesn't feel like one big, dark blob for the eye. But again, don't worry if you need to, you can just use your bleed proof white. I'm going to pick up a little more black while I have my tiny brush, and we can show some of those fun little feathers. Looking great. Thanks, Jacqueline. I'm excited to see what you guys are all painting today. I've so enjoyed seeing your work. I am truly inspired by seeing your work. You guys come up with textures and techniques and colors that I just never would have envisioned that are working out so well. Okay. Probably hard to tell, but all I did was add a little texture into the nose, where the nose meets the bird there. And then I do need to just run one tiny little color through the beak to help show the division. And for me, I'll just use what I have in my palette, which is the red and brown mixture, and that'll lay on perfectly for what I need with my tiny little liner brush. And you can kind of see with the outline coming through my orange, but I'll just help make that a little bit more defined by doing that. Okay. For now, that's all I'm going to do for the bird. What I do want to make sure that we get accomplished today is the stick that is, or the branch that he is sitting on. I am going to switch back to my medium size 6 pointed round brush. And this is where a kind of a warmish red, so I have one mixed up right here. This would be red mixed with brown, and then a titch of the Payne's gray is going to create that neutral stick-like color that I want. So with a good amount on my brush, this will be my base layer. On my branch, I am going to leave a little bit of a highlight on the top part of this branch here. So I'm just going to outline by leaving a little bit of a white there. Just going to grab more of that color. Working my way around. This piece is going to be lighter. So I think I'm safe with the amount of paint I have on my brush because we'll darken the other parts. But if you need to, just grab more water or dab your paper towel. And again, working our way up. I'm going to leave a highlight at the top of this branch, and I will just outline. So while those two pieces are still wet, to show some dimension, we'll just grab a little more of the brown and neutralize that by adding the Payne's gray to that. And I'll just dab my paper towel so I don't have too much on my brush. But this is where we'll drop that in to the lower half of our branch. Right there. And even add the shadow depth right underneath where the feet of the bird are connected. And you can even do some fun little jagged brush strokes because it is a branch. So you could take a dry brush and just pick up some of that and blot it. Helps to show some texture there. And before my other branch dries here, I'm just going to grab some more of that darker color. Add a little more Payne's gray to that. And run right along the under part of the branch. Just going to add a few more little pieces there. Take my dry brush and just blot at some of the areas that I just painted. Now this piece of the branch is just going to be naturally darker because it's hiding underneath the bird. So what was our base layer for these is going to be darker. I'll just add more of the brown, a little more of that red in there, and then definitely the Payne's gray, which I always forget where I have that. And that is going to be more of my base. I'll make it a little browner. All right, perfect. So being able to control how much I have on my brush, I'll start right here and working around that little foot. Just going to fill that section in. And then there will be a little bit of a lighter area on the branch right up top. So I'll just define the end like that. And now that I still have that color mixed up, I might as well just use it to help create some shadows right underneath those little feet right there. There's even one where the branch jets out right here. And you can hit some more down below it. And working our way down in this side of the branch. And if you wanted to make it look more realistic, there's even like little nodes that you could paint, or you could make some greenery come out of these sticks so they look even more realistic than what we did here in our tutorial for today. So again, my recommendation would be, since this is one of our more detailed pieces that we've painted so far in the challenge, is to take a step back from your painting and evaluate it to see if any other area needs to be darker. I'm going to drop the reference, like I said, in the comments of this video, so that way you can go ahead and reference the exact same photo that I'm using and take a peek and see if you need anywhere that needs a little more definition or depth. So like I mentioned, this was a really dark piece, but it also matched this little area here, so that helped make it all come together. And then of course, you can have fun with the background if you'd like. There's kind of a fun, misty, snowy background on this reference, so you could do that, or you could leave it white, because I do think it would be a really pretty series depending on how you're doing the backgrounds of your other paintings, but these two side by side in a frame would be really, really pretty on a bookshelf or on a wall. So yeah, I'm very, very excited to see what you guys come up with on this tutorial, and I can't thank you guys enough for being here, and can't wait for day 9 tomorrow. Continue to be posting your photos over on Instagram and tagging me, and I will continue to log those entries. And now have a great rest of your day, and I can't wait to see you all back here tomorrow at noon.